MCQ 7 is with regards to the functions of water, but the question is very particular in the function of water in a blood transport system. So for each of the point over here, let's take a look at what does it actually excel in for the case of the usage of water. Cools a surface from which it evaporates. Now this is the main mechanism that as we undergo homeostasis, the body cools itself when the water in sweat evaporates. We'll say that this act of evaporation actually causes the removal of latent heat. And since in the previous MCQ we know that enzyme is very sensitive to heat changes, the act of sweating is actually very important to maintain a constant internal environment. But this is not anything to do with the blood transport system, so 1 is out, meaning that A and B is out by itself. Now the second case here of a solvent for many chemicals. Now this is definitely a very important point here for the blood system. So the blood is actually considered to be a mixture whereby you have things like your red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. Now on top of that, the blood also carries items like plasma proteins as well as lipids. So if let's say all these solutes are unable to dissolve in blood, it will actually cause a precipitate in blood, and that's definitely not something we want as precipitate caused through our blood. This might cause cases of the blood vessel. In the lumen itself, if there is a precipitate, this might cause what we call as a plaque, or we can call this as an occlusion. And with a much narrower lumen itself, that will mean that the blood flow is actually compromised, and the amount of oxygen and the amount of glucose that can reach our actively respiring cells actually decreases, and this actually compromises on our aerobic respiration. So water as a solvent for many chemicals in the blood is a very, very important act over here. Now for the case of number 3, water that is involved in metabolic reactions, the most common metabolic reaction that water is involved is known as hydrolysis, where we actually break down complex food substance such as the case of protein, going through repeated hydrolysis catalyzed by proteases like trypsin, erepsin, and pepsin. It will break down to polypeptide. It will also eventually break down to the simplest, most soluble, absorbable form known as amino acid. So in digestion, yes, we need water for the hydrolysis reaction, but definitely not for the blood transport system. So not for 3. The correct answer here is C.